Thanks.
Hello? Hello?
So Chris, you're on for Tools Part 1 today, right?
Indeed. I'm ready to rock and roll.
And
Can
I
you
think,
hear me okay?
yeah, last year, after we did Part 2,
did a survey.
did a survey, right, to see what people wanted to follow up on. Okay,
Yep, I still got the survey.
cool.
Might as well. Yeah,
There's
okay.
nothing in it, yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Just wait down there. That's good.
I don't know what to really mess with.
Hey, Chris, have you ever heard of a tool called Voxer?
What's it called?
Voxer, V-O-X-E-R.
No, sounds like an audio tool.
It is. Let me see if I can. I was looking at it the other day. It's they call it like a walkie-talkie app.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Go. But I was thinking about possibly using it to get students to record comments.
Yeah, that could be fun. And I'll check it out. I'm always happy to add stuff to the list.
I mean, it sounds like Flipgrid, only without the, video.
Right, sure. Oh, nice. I will check that out.
I don't see any baby in the picture today, Andrew.
No, he's taking a nap right now. So hopefully he doesn't wake up.
Perfect timing. It's the best lesson I ever got when we had a kid. Nap when the baby naps.
Yeah, it works.
Yeah. She'd go down and I'd almost just hit the floor immediately.
It's that and clean whenever they nap. Really do anything.
Yeah, that's true.
In fact, the very recollection is bringing tears to Chris's eyes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a whole 17 years ago. I'm good.
Buddy, good to see you.
Hi, William.
Beautiful day in New Hampshire.
All right, Paul, so I'll let you call it whenever you want.
Yep. Yeah, we'll get started in just a few minutes.
Okay.
Still might be a couple people waiting to join.
I liked Chris' background today on Good Friday.
Today's Good Friday. Oh,
Yeah.
excellent. It's technically a coffee bar, so it's okay.
Oh,
It's what you would call a dry background.
mhm.
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody. And a couple housekeeping things. I usually open meetings with housekeeping things because because I'm one of those born administrative types. So I sent the members of the third cohort an email about the EDUCAUSE conference earlier this week. And since, to be honest, we have kind of more money than we know what to do with. The original plan is not for people in the first year of IDEAL to go to conferences. But since we do have so much money, I did want to make you aware that there are opportunities for you to go to conferences on IDEAL's dime. And as I indicated in the email, there are lots of such conferences. EDUCAUSE can be a good one. Mari Kelly and Donna Decker went last year and found lots to write home about, literally, and had presented on it. And so if you are ever interested in that or any other conference, just let me know. And the easiest procedure is for you to actually do the registration yourself, because they ask you questions, you know, that I don't know about you. And then to send me the receipt, including the credit card information. And then I have you fill out a reimbursement form, and then you get reimbursed that way out of IDEAL. So if anybody wants to take advantage of that, please let me know soon. And then there will be other conference opportunities coming up later in the year. Also, I am going to have to resend the Zoom invitation to everybody, because I think as you heard from Cheryl Blevins, they are requiring passcodes now. So you'll see a cancellation of all of the Zoom meetings that I sent out earlier, and then I'll send out a new one again. So just be aware that that'll be on its way, and don't worry about Zoom or IDEAL being canceled, because we're just canceling it to reset it for the passcodes. So without further ado, this is going to be part one of what we call tools, tools, tools. And I mentioned earlier that some of our meetings are discussions. Sometimes we have a speaker, and other times we learn about new tools. And our conclave today falls under the latter. So I am going to turn it over to Chris Previtt, and you're going to be introduced to all sorts of things today.
Hello. All right. How is everybody today? All right. So I'm going to mute everybody. But so the way this is going to work is we're going to go through the tools, and the more tools handout. I'm going to show you where you can find that. And it's broken down into sections. We're going to get through a little bit less than half of the tools today, and then we'll do the other slightly more than half next time around, okay? As we get through each section, I'll stop and ask if there's any questions on that particular section, and then we can sort of progress from there, okay? All right, so let's just mute everybody. Okay, great. Let's go along here. I'm going to share the screen, and I'm going to show you where you can find some stuff. Okay, let's go over here. Okay, can everybody see our IDEAL homepage on Canvas here? Nod. All right, cool as a moose. All right, so the thing we're going to go do today, of course, is dive into the tools, and more tools handout. For your own purposes, you can find it right here on our IDEAL Canvas page. So here on the IDEAL Canvas homepage, if you scroll down to IDEAL links and resources, there's a link to the tools, and more tools handout. And when you click that, it takes you to an interactive page about tools, and more tools, which we're going to go over in a second, as well as all of the links, which is organized by category. And at the very, 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 very bottom of this thing, you can download a Microsoft Word version of the handout if you would rather have an actual file for your computer, which is the one I'm going to be working off in this demonstration. So just so you know how to find it, okay? All right, so that is that. Let's move along. We'll get out of here for a moment. So I'm going to pull up the handout. All right, so this is what the handout looks like. And so the goal of this sort of run through is not necessarily to demonstrate all of the tools in any sort of detail, because there's a lot of them, is more or less just to sort of go through them quickly and introduce you to them. I will do a little bit more with some than others, and there's some I'm actually going to skip over, because the main goal is to introduce you to the handout and hopefully spark some curiosity in wanting to go in and investigate these on your own, and most importantly, play around with them. Now, while this is to a degree a giant tool fest, there is also some discussion to be had about the types of tools, their purposes in life, and really what they ask of us as users. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in a second as well. Now, primarily the list is made up of useful and mostly free digital tools. The majority of these are available online through web browsers. Some of them have to be downloaded to your computer and therefore used terrestrially, and some are available for mobile devices. Almost all of them have at least a free tier to be used, and some of them have tiered pay structures. But we are not looking at expensive professional grade tools here. That being said, we do look at a couple of walled garden systems at the end of the next session, just to point to the fact that those, of course, still exist and how they tie into these tools. Okay, so at the top of the document here, the first thing I'm going to jump down to is digital tools and student agency. Now, we're not going to go through this super specifically here, but it is something for you to read. And the crux of this is that essentially that, you know, nothing is free in life. And while a lot of these tools don't cost any money, they do ask things of us as users. They ask things of us from an educational perspective. They ask things of us from a privacy and an identity perspective. And I think it's important that when you are using these tools, as much as I love digital stuff, you should be aware of the fact that the people that make these, variety of people from all over the place, are asking things of you. Anonymity is a big concern, of course, when you're dealing with web-based tools, because you are accessing the internet, accessing the World Wide Web to use the tool, and therefore you are sharing data. And there are questions with regards to their role in education. The majority of these tools that are on here have an education purpose in mind. That's either their explicit purpose or a secondary purpose. So we've put together a list of tools here that obviously have a focus on education. And because of that, of course, it does bring up a discussion about what are the assumptions about the users, the students, the learning environment, etc. Anyway, you can read through this. When I use this workshop in some of my classes, I use a longer version and a more truncated version, depending on the class. I will have students do an investigation into the tools and answer these questions by doing their research, finding out where the tools come from, who makes them, and what their expectations are. It's also important to know sort of like what their views are, because maybe you don't want to associate yourself with a certain tool because of who makes it. Don't know. It's a personal decision. So anyway, this page falls into that category of really sort of taking a really good look at where the tools come from and what they're asking of you. So something to certainly check out. Okay, the next thing we are going to do is take a look at what the categories are. So if we go back up here to the table of contents, you'll see that we have annotation tools, audio, music, and podcasting tools, cloud storage, collaboration, data math and coding, graphics creation, and mapping tools. That's about as far as we're going to get today, assuming all goes well. Next time around, we'll pick it up from there and move our way through the remainder of the topics. And then, like I said, there is a bit of a talk at the end about tool ecosystems, including two of the most famous ecosystems, which are these here. Okay, let's get rolling on the actual tools. So moving on down to annotation tools. We're going to start with these two here. Now, just so you can see how the form is set up, the name of the tool is on the left column. Each of these are live links to their website, which gives you information about how to access it or download it. It tells you what the availability is. They are either free online tools, which are available through a web browser. They are free for your desktop, either Mac OS or Windows. And then some of them, of course, are free mobile tools, and it will name the mobile operating system like iOS, which is for Apple devices. And then there's a little blurb, a couple of sentences about each one on the right, just to give you a very quick overview about what they do. Some of those I wrote, some of those come directly from their website. Okay, so let's see here. Moving on. Okay, so let's take a look at these two annotation tools, eMargin and Hypothesis. So eMargin, and now the two tools work very similarly. They allow you to access some kind of text online, create a working environment, and then add people to it as groups. And so you can group annotate something. eMargin works with texts, uploaded texts, text accessible from a variety of sources. So let's, for example, take a look at the Raven here, right? We're all familiar with the Raven. And so when you can upload text from any number of sources, PDFs, Word documents, eBooks, you name it, and you can add them to your library. And then when you add them, regardless of whatever your formatting is from the original document, it will put it into this lined, numbered format, which allows you to sort of go through it and work on it line by line. Now over here on this side, we have the annotation tools. You can add groups of people to your account, and then those people can be assigned to a text. So this is great for the classroom. You can assign groups of students, entire classes, and they can annotate the text together. Now the annotation tools are, of course, highlighter based. You can highlight something, and then that gives you a place to go ahead and put your commentary. It's not limited to a certain number of lines. You can actually put paragraphs of information if you would like. You can add meta tags and search tags simply by adding those in manually, which adds it to the database of your eMargin account. And of course, you can color code everything. Now, I will say that the available color coding is fairly limited. There's only a handful of colors. It's not as if they allow you to customize the colors. But once you go ahead and add your notes or whatever, you save it, and then it gets added to the list of annotations. The tags start to pile up over here. And of course, you can sort and access things using the variety of the tools over here. Now, similarly, Hypothesis does the same sort of thing in groups. You can assign groups, but instead of annotating uploaded texts, it annotates websites. So if you want to assign websites to your class and use them as a research source, or have your students analyze them and take them apart in a variety of different ways, this is the place to do it. Same thing, you can sign up for a free account, and I'm just going to run the animation here that they shows you how it works. You can select, you link it to the website you want, you select the text to annotate, add tags to post it publicly and save it privately, and you can reply and share any annotations, link to notes or whole pages. You can work together in groups. You can collaborate either privately or with others. This works alone or in groups. And then of course, everything you do from the annotation point of view becomes searchable. So this works similar to the other site, to eMargin, but again for websites as opposed to texts. Okay, moving on. Let's go to our next category. Okay, so now from annotation, we're going to drop down to audio, music, and podcasting tools. Now, I'm not going to go through these in the order that they're presented here. I'm going to go through the order in which they would be useful in sort of creating projects and whatnot. So let's do that. So dropping back over here, we're going to start with Creative Commons, not because it's an audio tool, but because this is going to inform a lot of the tools we're going to be looking at in a minute. So of course, copyright infringement and intellectual property are important. We don't want students stealing things, just taking them from Google, something we talk a lot about in my program. And so Creative Commons is a nonprofit organization that basically works to make content available for educational purposes in a free-to-use licensing environment. The simplest way to look at it is that the content is free to use for educational purposes, so long as you're not trying to make money off of it. Students can use it, you can use it. And this is their homepage, which of course links to a variety of partner pages where you can find things. But in a moment, the things we're going to be looking at are all Creative Commons licensed sites. So the content is therefore free to use for educational purposes. Okay, so the first one we're going to look at is an audio library known as Audio Archive. And so Audio Archive is what you would call sort of an eclectic collection of audio files. And I say eclectic because they have a crazy amount of stuff from all sorts of different places. Now, you can make a free account to sign up for it. It's pretty straightforward. And it gives you access to all sorts of things. You can see here as I sort of scroll through their table of contents page, they have everything from spirituality lectures to feature films to European libraries to over 14,000 live Grateful Dead concerts. So all sorts of audio files that you could possibly want and use for educational purposes. They have audiobooks in Russian. They have old-timey radio shows from the 1940s. It's really an all over the place collection of information. And this all falls under the Creative Commons licensing. It's all free to use. Now, of course, when you pick a category that you want, let's say we're interested in the Grateful Dead, it'll take you to that area and you can see all the recordings. They are presented as waveforms, right? So I talk to my students a lot about the visual representation of audio so that they can sort of see how things work. There is a big sorting system on the left-hand side where you can sort by the date, the year in which they were recorded, other sort of filters that will narrow it down. You can listen to previews of them, and you can go to the one you want. So this is from 1977, and it's broken down by song. Now, I should have sharing set up so you can hear sound. If not, I'll double check it. But I'm going to play something. You tell me if you can hear this, okay? No? Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm going to stop sharing for half a second. Let me reshare. Okay, hookah, 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 hookah. Let's see if this works. Now let's try it again. There you go. All right. So as you can see, there's the concert, song by song. Now, of course, you can preview them all here, and then as you scroll down, you get more information about where it came from. Notes, good things for citations for students, and then you have a variety of download options, including MP3 files, which is normally what I recommend for people, is to download the MP3s. Once you pick a file and download it, it will go right to your computer, download that, and it drops into the preview bin, download to your computer. Now, similar to Audio Archive is Freesound. Freesound is also an audio library, but instead of the sort of long form audio that we find over at Audio Archive, Freesound is a collection of free to use sound effects. And they are all recorded by audiophiles who are really into recording things. And so you can sign up for a free account, which allows you to save the sounds and download them to your own library. So let's say we are looking for a sound effect of a cow, because why not? You can search for cow in the search bar, and so there you go. And as you can see, there are 639 recordings of cows. They have a pretty vast library. What's really nice about this is that they have a variety of different file types. You can sort by, depending on how much you are into audio, you can sort by bit rate, you can sort by sample rate if you want to get very specific about it. They're rated. Most of these library tools have a social media aspect to them where people can leave comments for the creators. So if you're interested in something, you can simply click on it. Again, you can preview it, check out a bunch of stuff here, and see there's that Creative Commons licensing tag. But people leave comments for the creators. The creators like to see that. And then when you find the one you want, you can download it, and it drops it right into your downloads folder for later use. So here I have it in my downloads folder. That was a baby cow. All right, so you get the idea. All right, stop, enough of that. All right, so that is Freesound. All right, next, moving on from Freesound. Hold on, let me fold this up. Let's see what I'm doing. Okay, so now that you have your sounds, whether you've recorded your own sound things from audio libraries, you're now going to want to sort of assemble them into an actual project, right? You're going to want to edit them or do some audio engineering. So for some people, you're going to want Audacity. Now, we have Audacity here at the school. It is in the editing suites. It's a great piece of software. It works on Windows computers, Linux computers, and Apple computers. I particularly recommend it for Windows computers because it works really well on there. The interface was originally designed for that. And it is a multi-track recording software that is free to download, free to use. And you can see here by the preview that it is not super complicated to use. Now, Apple, of course, has a very similar thing that comes free with all Macintosh computers, which is GarageBand, which I will show you here. Yep, got that. Okay, there we go. So there is GarageBand. Comes free with all Apple computers. And it is sort of like the sister software to Audacity. It's a little prettier looking than Audacity, but Apple likes making things look pretty. So again, it's a multi-track recording suite. And so you can do a bunch of different things with it. It has a variety of tools, which allows you to adjust sound and whatnot, but really what it boils down to is the multiple tracks. Now, the one thing that GarageBand has that's really interesting is a whole bunch of downloadable free loops that are recorded by actual studio musicians out in California in Apple's recording studio. And so you can easily build sound this way. Now, of course, GarageBand can be used to record from your own instrument that you can plug into your computer. You can speak into it and make podcasts. You can sing into it, which I won't do. Or you can use these loops or audio files that you have downloaded. So for example, if I grab my downloads and grab that cow sound I just got, I can just drag it over here to GarageBand and it goes in. Now it's not going in because I'm probably using too much memory at the moment, but you get the idea. And of course the loops are over here, which is the loops library for GarageBand. You can sort by instrument. So if you're just looking for piano, it'll sort that. You can preview them and listen to those, and you can sort of go from there. Now, I will warn you that GarageBand doesn't work well in a Zoom environment, unfortunately, so you can't hear a lot of what I'm doing. But basically, with GarageBand, it's all sort of drag and drop and go from there. Okay, so that is that. Moving on. Next, in our audio area, let's talk about what you will do after you make your audio file. So we've used Audacity or GarageBand to make something, and now we want to sort of share it with the world. Well, if you've made a podcast, there's a really great app and website called Anchor, which is a free-to-use service, which allows you to create your own podcast directly in their interface online. You can share them a variety of different ways, and you can even, if you want to get into the podcast game for real, you can try to monetize them and get advertising for your podcast, all directly through Anchor. It's a pretty great tool. I just learned about this about last year and haven't had too much time to play around with it, but it's pretty great, and a lot of podcasters are starting to use Anchor. It's pretty neat. Now, if you're not doing podcasts specifically, but you have other types of sound you want to share with the world, I have my students set up a SoundCloud account for themselves. Now, SoundCloud is to audio as YouTube is to video, right? In that you can either consume other people's content, so you can find all sorts of artists, musicians, and whatnot on SoundCloud, some famous, some not so famous. SoundCloud really focuses on lesser known acts. But more importantly, you can set yourself up your own SoundCloud page where you can store your audio. Now, whether you're trying to be the next famous rapper or spoken word artist, or you just need a place to put your audio files, SoundCloud is great because uploading physical audio files anywhere eats up a ton of data. You can't email them, they're too large, they're tough to put up on Canvas, they're big. So what I have my students do is set up their own SoundCloud pages, like this is mine. Yes, I am PrevHound, I apologize for that. And then this way you can share the audio files and embed them into websites directly. So this, for example, is a audio clip story that I have my students do in the storytelling class. And this is just an example. Let me know if you can hear this. This was made And so it's just a day in someone's life using audio clips that are put together to make a story, basically. But the nice thing about putting things into SoundCloud is that it is entirely shareable. So when you go to the share sheet, you have a bunch of options. You can simply click the link and then embed it into a website, send it to somebody in an email, upload it somewhere else onto a publishing platform. You can set it at a certain point in the audio file as opposed from the beginning. You can embed it as an actual player, and this gives you HTML coding options so that you can set the look of the player, you can change the main color, you can change the size and the height of it or whatnot, and then that actual player can be embedded into a website, or you can simply send it to somebody as an embedded message. So it's great for sharing audio files, and it does not eat up a ton of memory. So SoundCloud is really great for that. Okay, and then the other audio tool I'm going to show you is actually not on the list yet. I just started using it in my digital storytelling class, so I'm going to add it to our list. And this is the Chrome Music Lab. This is a lot of fun because it teaches people about music visually. And so there's a bunch of different tools. Some are kind of goofy, some are a little more scientific and serious. But just to go into SongMaker for a second. So it's a visual audio creation tool, and from here you can choose the instrument you want to work with. So we'll go with piano, and you can switch to, say, electronic, and then using the grid you go in and drop in the blocks wherever you want. I'm not putting a lot of thought into this, I'm simply just putting them in. A little bit of percussion at the bottom, and of course the geometric shapes each represent different sorts of sounds. You can adjust the tempo accordingly, and then when you're happy with it, I realize that sounds like an elephant falling downstairs holding a bunch of instruments, but if I put more thought into it, you can make it sound like something, right? And then once you're happy with it, you can save it, save your creation, and it makes a link for you that you can then share with somebody. You can copy the link and then share it with somebody. It's a great way to teach students about the basics of sound creation. You can also download it as either a MIDI file or a WAV file as well. Okay, so that gets us from annotation through audio. Let's stop here and see if anybody has any questions. If you have any questions, you want to unmic yourself, go right ahead. No? All right, excellent.
Chris, did you mention the survey yet? We might have mentioned it right at the beginning of the meeting before a lot of people were on, but
I
what-
did not, but I am getting to SurveyMonkey soon. I will mention it then.
yeah, because we're going to show you tons of tools, and then Chris is going to send you a survey later to see which ones you're really interested in learning more about.
Okay, so any questions
Chris-
before we
Chris-
slide along here? Yeah.
This is Joe. So these are a lot of free apps. How are they paying for themselves?
That's a really good question. Many of them survive through advertising, through placed advertising. And what I was talking about earlier about sort of investigating what they ask of you, part of using the tool, of course, is that they collect data on you and, of course, your IP address. And as you've probably noticed, when you navigate to most websites these days, it will remind you that they are using cookies. And while cookie is a very friendly word, what those are is little bits of code that get embedded into your computer every time you visit a website. And then that sort of tracks what your IP address is doing. This is why you can be at the Home Depot website looking for garden hoses, and then you'll see an ad for garden hoses pop up on your Facebook page a little bit later in the day. So it's that sort of a thing. Their advertising is targeted. So when you visit their website, you'll see things that might be specific to you. And then other times they work, some of them are educationally based and they have grants and go from that area. But, you know, it's all different from place to place.
Thank you.
Chris, I have a question about the auto archive. Is that just from concerts, or do they take music from albums?
I
Also.
haven't dug deeply enough in it to see. I always use the Grateful Dead example when I do this because it's amazing they have that many Grateful Dead concerts. But they have all sorts of things. They do have recorded music. A lot of it's old-timey music. They have a ton of old-time radio shows, you know, the Shadow Knows and all that stuff. So it's a variety of things. You are not going to find sort of what you would say like popular music on there. It's definitely more out of the ordinary stuff.
Okay, thank you.
One thing about the Grateful Dead on there is that they have multiple recordings of the same concert. Some of it's soundboard, some of it's audience. I've just revealed that I'm a Deadhead, but it's
Well, they always allow people to record. So
yeah. But you might get like 4, like the one you brought up from 1977 at Cornell is very famous. So there might be like 5 different versions of it.
Yeah, so you definitely want to read the notes and look for the soundboard ones, I imagine.
Could you tell us a little bit about Looperman? Yeah, drum
yes.
tracks and stuff.
Sure. So I mentioned that GarageBand has a built-in loop library. So audio loops, of course, are pieces of music that are recorded to basically begin and end exactly the same way, so that you can then continue to loop them endlessly. Unfortunately, I can't really demonstrate it on Zoom because GarageBand is not super friendly with Zoom. But even though GarageBand comes loaded with a ton of them and you can download more, not all audio editing software does that. And so Looperman is basically a website where it's a community of musicians that essentially make loops that you can then download and use. And so we can go to it here and take a look. And so it's a lot of, you know, they say they have 162,528 free audio loops, waves, and sample sounds. And similar to Freesound, where people are recording sound effects and putting it up there out of the goodness of their heart to share with the community, it's a similar sort of thing. Which is great because then, of course, you can use them in your audio editing software and whatnot.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I haven't dug too deep into Looperman because I mostly use GarageBand, so I use a lot of the loops that come with it. But I know from people who use Audacity that Looperman is pretty much invaluable. It's good stuff. All right. Anything else? All right, so let's get back to where we were. Zoom back a little bit here. Where was I? All right, so Freesound, Audacity, Anchor. We did this. Okay, we did Chrome Music. Okay, next, let's take a look at cloud storage. I'm going to spend very little time on this because this is the category you guys should be probably most familiar with. Cloud storage is not really that controversial or uncommon as it used to be. We all, of course, have access to free cloud storage through OneDrive here at the school, through your email. I assume everybody is familiar with that by now, right? When you go to your school email and then click on the collection of tools we have access to, you can hop into OneDrive, and it's basically cloud storage. Now, the beautiful thing about cloud storage, regardless of whichever one you're using, is that not only does it back up your work automatically, you can set the preferences to do that because we're all bad at remembering to back up our files, but it creates a shareable collaborative environment. You can share documents, you can collaborate on on documents, you can share folders. And they all do the same thing. So I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but everything from Dropbox to OneDrive to Google Drive to Apple's iCloud Drive, they all do the same thing. And some of the earlier ones like Box, which was one of the first ones that came out, which was very controversial when it came out, because a lot of people were skeptical about putting their personal digital files on somebody else's servers. You know, they're still around. They're still functioning from what I understand. But the truth of the matter is that, like most things in the digital environment, convenience eventually seems to win out over people's fears, because it really is nice to have your files everywhere. But at the same time, I am generally selective about what I put on cloud storage and what I keep on an actual physical hard drive that I back up from my computer. I'm not putting all my personal tax documents up on Google Drive. So there you go. All right, so that's cloud storage. I assume there's no questions on cloud storage. That's pretty commonly known these days. Yes. Okay, good. All right, so let's look at some collaboration tools. Now, collaboration tools are interesting because most sort of team-based corporate type collaboration tools are expensive. And this is meant to be free or cheap. So Slack is probably one of the only ones that has sort of a team-based, something you might find in a business environment, that is free to use. I don't really get into it too much here, but it is there. But I want to take a look at a couple others. So let's pop over and take a look at Paper. Now, Paper is interesting. That Paper used to be a freestanding company, and then it was bought by Dropbox. So we just looked at Dropbox as one of the cloud storage tools, but they own this other thing called Paper, which integrates with Dropbox. And what it does is it allows you to create a sort of free-form document online, and then invite people to collaborate and make teams online, and it creates a sharing environment. Now, to be fair, Microsoft OneDrive does similar things, but this is what they say in a fluid environment. You know, they say it's formatting that flows. It allows you to sort of work your way through it. Now, I haven't used Paper too much. I don't have a huge need for collaborative tools beyond what I already have. But if you are looking for an environment where a bunch of people can work together on one project at the same time, this is a good thing to look into for sort of you and your students. Okay, next. This here is Goose Chase, one of our guest speakers who came in last year. Somebody I actually brought in mentioned Goose Chase during her talk, and it is a place where you can build and launch scavenger hunts, which is technically a collaboration tool. I put it under collaboration tools because what else is a scavenger hunt if not collaborative, right? And so what's kind of great about it is that you can build it digitally. It links through your phone, through the app, and then people use GPS to find the things that you have built into the scavenger hunt. So in this age of social distancing, it could probably be a lot of fun to have people get outside and go looking for things without having to be cramped into a room. Now, I haven't tried it yet because you just introduced this to me last year. But from what I understand, it's kind of a blast, and a lot of educational locations end up using this. And you can sort of go through and see all the what people are saying about it. But what's kind of great is you can embed all sorts of digital information. You can put in photographs, videos, text. People can be in communication with each other through the app while they are doing the scavenger hunt. So you can be in different places and communicating with each other. It's kind of fun. I was going to employ this in a conference that we were going to do on campus, but that's been sort of put on hold at the moment. But if we ever get around to doing that, I would love to do a goose chase scavenger hunt. Okay, another collaboration tool is Padlet. Now, Padlet is another new one to our list, so we haven't had too much time to play around with it. But Padlet is kind of like Pinterest. If you know Pinterest, which I'm sure you do, or you have a child who does. People have Pinterest of all sorts of things. Padlet is sort of like Pinterest, but it's not public. So Padlet is sort of a private collaboration environment where you can build things similar to Pinterest, but also in sort of a mind mapping type way. And then you can collaborate and brainstorm together as a group. It's a pretty useful tool for that, and it uses very similar interfaces that you would find on Pinterest. And you can do things from a variety of different points of view. You can make timelines, you can use maps, you can put it in a grid format, you can just make a wall, which is how Pinterest works. Same sort of idea. So they have nice organizational tools. It is media rich. It handles everything from text to video to photography to audio. And like I say, you can collaborate on this with team members. So you can sign up for free. Everybody signs up and gets on board with it, and then you can work on these things. Yes, so in the chat, students would need to download the Goose Chase app. Once you, as the scavenger hunt builder, builds the scavenger hunt and you deploy it to the people who are partaking in it, they access it through the app, which sort of gets them through it. Okay, next, let's talk about Quizlet. Now, you guys have probably heard of Quizlet because it's a little controversial in educational areas. And it's controversial because people build Quizlets as flashcards so that they can study for their test, just like we made flashcards on pieces of paper, right, or on index cards. But if you make them public on Quizlet, they're searchable through Google. And so a lot of students will build their flashcards to study for the test and make them public, and then other students from other schools or from wherever will simply access them and take the answers. So it's sort of, you know, an easy way to cheat. But that being said, it is a really good tool in class. So it is basically digital flashcards. So you set up a Quizlet, you create the number of flashcards, you build it. So this is on typographic anatomy. I use this in my class. So, you know, the imaginary shelf that letter forms appear to sit on.
The imaginary shelf that letter forms appear to sit upon.
What it is. So that is a baseline. And then you can move on to, of course, the next one from there. Hold on, let me get this out of the way. And then so on and so forth. So it's a great way to sort of study for things, or you can use it in the classroom up on the screen for quizzing your students as a group, which is helpful. And I just put text in here, but it is also media rich. You can drop in photographs and all sorts of things into it. Okay, so Quizlet, digital flashcards. And you can set it up to run automatically. It has functions where it will shuffle the cards. You can add different options. You can have it test you. So it's actually a really good tool for that. Okay, next, let's move to our next category. Okay, so as we get out of collaboration and we'll move into data, math, and coding, does anybody have any questions?
Chris, I'm sorry to keep interrupting.
Not at all.
So with the Quizlet, if somebody else uploads, you know, index cards or flashcards, and I download them, I kind of feel I'm still learning. Somebody else might have done the work, but I still have to memorize the information. So I don't know how much of a problem that is.
Yeah, I should clarify. I don't necessarily agree it's an issue. I'm just saying that there's a lot of chatter in educational circles, particularly younger kids, about how they're just sort of using them as cliff notes. You know, if you get, you're just sort of clicking and finding the answers. Pretty straightforward.
I think one of the problems is that students will upload quiz and exam questions to Quizlet, particularly for online courses, and then students can just search them really quickly and find the answers for quizzes and exams.
Right, exactly.
The other thing I wanted to mention is I've been using, Canvas for just our basic Canvas for some collaborative efforts, both as a wiki and as putting them into groups in the class to kind of just respond to each other through a discussion page. And that seems to be working. People seem to think that's working okay. So.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And the overall theme of looking at these tools is that 90% of these won't be for you. Do you know what I mean? Like the goal here is I show you these and then you're going to say, I like that one. I like that one. I want to try that one out. There is no attempt here to have people go through all of them. There's just far too many of them. Hopefully something will speak to you that's interesting. And what I tell my students too, when I teach them about a variety of different software and whatnot, is that ultimately you need the tool that does the job you need it to do. And if something newer and shinier comes out, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the right tool. You have to just make sure you're using something that accomplishes the goals that you have in mind.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So let's take a look at data, math, and coding. So there's a variety of things here. I'm going to look at a few things. We're going to start with Codecademy for coding. And so Codecademy is one of those sort of online learning environments where you can take classes and go through a variety of sort of pre-built classes. They do charge for it, but the reason I put it in here is because if you can make a free account, and every month they put up new free lessons. So if you check in monthly, you'll get new free lessons. Now they're sort of randomized, so you can't really follow a curriculum per se, but if you just want to dip your hand into coding and see if you like it before you spend any money on learning it, you can go ahead and do this. Now in my UX design course, DMD 120, I teach students about HTML and CSS, but one of the things I have them do is practice in this environment. And I'll show you how it works. So this is their library. They teach all sorts of different languages, right? Everything from Python to Kotlin. Kotlin is the underlying language for Android operating systems. Swift is the underlying language for Apple mobile operating systems, and so on and so forth. There's a ton of them. But for instance, if you look at the Learn HTML lesson, which is free at the moment, so you can go ahead and poke into there. And it's a real simple learning environment broken up into columns. And so the way it works is the left-hand column is the instructions. So you can see that this particular lesson has 16 mini lessons, right? So this class has 16 mini lessons. I'm on number 3 here, and you make your way through it. The left-hand column are the instructions, what it's asking you to do. And so you have the student read through it, follow the directions, and then the middle is the interactive type space where you actually go ahead and put in the code that it's telling you to do. And then the right-hand column is what you would consider sort of a miniature web browser that's going to emulate what it would look like on a web browser in real time. So we can simply go in here and change the text to that, and then hit run, and it go ahead and processes it and shows us on the web browser. So it's really sort of coding 101. And a lot of times my goal with students is just to get them interested in code. They're not here for a computer science degree, but I need them to understand how code works, to be able to troubleshoot it, and to be able to work with people who are coders. And so I like this environment because it helps them get comfortable with it in sort of a low stress environment. You do the lessons, you can do them over and over again as many times as you want until you're comfortable, and then you simply hit next and move on to the next lesson once you've completed it. Pretty straightforward. Okay, next one on the list outside of Codecademy, let's go to Grapher. Now this is a whole different thing, and I put this in because it's completely free, but honestly it is Mac only. So I try to point out if they're Mac only. But Grapher is sort of a hidden tool that if you open up your applications folder on your Macintosh computer and go down to the utilities folder, you will find hidden under here mostly tools that are about sort of managing your computer, but Grapher is free right there, and that's what Grapher looks like. So if you are doing any sort of geometry or whatnot, and you want students to graph out like you would in a graphic calculator, you pick what type of graph you want. They have both 2-dimensional and 3-dimensional. So if you want to work with a cube or whatnot, or if you want to do a cylindrical system. So you choose what you want, and then you go ahead and turn it on, and it sets up the work environment for you, where you can start punching in your formulas and seeing how they work in real time in either 2 or 3 dimensions. It's pretty great. Now, am not a geometry teacher, so I can't help you too much with the details, but it is useful for that sort of a thing, and it's a good visual thing. All right, and of course, it's free, which is great. Okay, so that's Grapher. Next, let's talk about Infogram. So data visualizations usually fall on two ends of the spectrum. Either we're talking pie charts, which everybody has seen quite enough of, or we're talking about complex data visualizations that most people don't understand. And a lot of data visualization tools are super expensive to use, or you have to build them from scratch, which requires a knowledge base that you don't necessarily have. So Infogram is a great free online tool that allows you to make data visualizations that sort of fall right in the middle. They are visually attractive. They tell narrative stories using data. They simplify data into the type of storytelling that you want to do to influence people, to get across an idea, to explain something historically, or whatever the things that data visualizations are best at. But it uses data visualizations that we are familiar with. Sure, you get your pie charts and whatnot, but it uses bubble graphs, it uses rows graphs, it uses a variety of different, slightly more complex graphs that expand out from your bar charts and your pie charts. You can import Excel sheets or Apple numbers sheets into it, which you can sort of see here in the animation. It's going by quickly. You can throw in your spreadsheet and that will populate the data, or you can manually put in the data. And then you can visually design what your visualizations look like, and you can add additional graphics such as titles and body copy and callouts, et cetera, et cetera. They can then be shared, they can be collaborated with, and of course you can download them into a variety of file types. This is a great tool. I just started using this in my data visualization class because it takes away a lot of the stress of having to build data visualizations from scratch, but they're still visually engaging and work really well in a variety of formats. So Infogram. Okay, next. What do we have here? Oh, SurveyMonkey. So also, and I put this under data, it's a survey tool, which isn't really data, but what I like about SurveyMonkey is that it allows you to analyze your results. Now, it's a great name, SurveyMonkey. Now, of course, under Microsoft, under our free suite of Microsoft Office 365 tools, you can use Microsoft Forms, which is great for surveys. But what Forms doesn't do is it doesn't analyze things for you. So, for instance, this is the free version of SurveyMonkey, which allows you to deploy a certain number of surveys per month. You can have up to 10 questions per survey. And so, for example, you can go ahead and build yourself a survey, and it walks you through the steps. This is your dashboard for your survey. If you've already deployed the survey, it tells you how many respondents you've gotten and whatnot. You can go ahead and design the survey. It is sort of visually attractive and engaging. There are templates you can use. And there are a variety of built-in tools. If you type in a little bit about your survey, SurveyMonkey, through an algorithm, will actually recommend questions for you. It'll look at previously used questions for similar type surveys from their database and their community. You can access the community and see what they have, or of course you can just use the builder and have a whole bunch of different types of survey tools, everything from checkboxes to star ratings to drop downs to matrices to rankings, et cetera, et cetera. You'll see that some of the tools are marked as upgrade for the pro version, but about 70% of the functionality is available in the free version, which is usually perfect for what you're trying to do. I wouldn't recommend paying for it. You can do a lot this way. And then of course you can visually design it. You can add colors and whatnot through their templates. You can move things around easily enough. You can edit the questions. And once you're happy with it, you can go ahead and preview it, and the little computer in the back of SurveyMonkey will tell you how effective it thinks your survey is based on a variety of different things. And then you can send it out for response collections, and you can do that a bunch of ways. You can send a web link to people. You can batch email people. You can put in groups of emails or individual emails. You can share it on social media. You can mount it onto a website, etc. And then when you get your survey results back, SurveyMonkey will automatically analyze the results and show you the results this way using a variety of information, including bar graphs and information like that. I can switch this over to a pie chart if I want to. And you can turn these into reports from there. So you can sort of see how your data played out, how many responses you got, what the percentage was, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a great tool. Now, The one tool that the professional one has is the ability to then take your analyzed results and turn it into a presentation. But for educational purposes, I think we're okay this way. So SurveyMonkey works out pretty good. All right, hold on, chat. Right, exactly. That's a good point, Shaylee. You're 100% right. SurveyMonkey also allows you to set up automatic reminders or manual reminders. So if you send out the survey to 100 people and you only hear back from a certain amount of them, it can send reminders via whatever means you wish to say, hey, you haven't taken the survey yet. Please go ahead and do that. Yeah, it's super useful. And the school, I believe, I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I think we might have a SurveyMonkey account, or we used to. I'm not sure. I don't want to forget I said that. I could be wrong. But either way, the free one is pretty great to use. Okay, any questions about data, math, and coding stuff? Now, I did skip over a couple. I skipped over numbers because it's basically just Apple's version of Microsoft Excel. If you know Excel, you can pick up numbers in a weekend. It's easy. But any questions on that category before we get to probably our last category today, looking at the time, be a little bit of graphics creation stuff. Anybody? Okay. Oh, thank you, Catherine. Okay, moving on. Let's take a look at some graphics creation stuff. Okay, so the first thing we're going to take a look at is Adobe Spark. And I'm actually going to look at two things together. So Adobe Spark and Canva. So Adobe Spark and Canva are graphic design programs that exist on the web, online. Canva has been around for a long time. They are both template-driven design programs that allow you to create a variety of different deliverables for print objects such as posters and flyers and graphics, to web-based or digital-based things such as presentations and social media posts. You can even do video presentations. Spark actually also allows you to also make single-use websites. What's great about both of these is not only are they sort of free to use, but there's a variety of ways to access them, and you can share the information with other people on sort of a team. So Spark, for example, you can sign in a bunch of ways. If you have an Adobe ID, it unlocks some more functionality, but even the free version, just getting in through Google, will give you the majority of the functionality. What's great about these is you don't have to really know a ton about graphic design, and it does pain me to say that as I am a professional graphic designer, but it is a super useful tool in that a lot of times you need to create content for something and you don't know where to start. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this. You can see that they have sort of pre-built templates that you can then go ahead and edit. So for example, if we grab one here, you can see that the workspace, assuming it loads there, the workspace is pretty simple. There are a limited number of tools involved with this. And it's an amazing tool from Adobe because historically, Adobe software tends to be two things, expensive and complicated. And Spark is neither of those things. It is free and actually fairly simple to use. So somebody in Adobe got visited by 3 ghosts somewhere along the way. But it is a really easy to use tool in that you'll see over here the limited toolbar. And Spark uses what I like to call the golf caddy method, in that if you click on a certain element, a bounding box appears around that element. So this is a typographic element. And then it serves to you the toolbox that it thinks you need for that element. So it's basically saying, hey, looks like you're working on type. You want this toolbox. And so it's like a good golf caddy sort of telling you what you might need, and then you can go ahead and make changes to it and adjust sizes and change fonts and change colors, et cetera, et cetera. And if I were to click on the background image, it gives me a different toolbox, and so on and so forth. All of these things are editable. You can get rid of certain things. You can customize things. You can go to the add button and add your own things that you want, either icons, photos, text, etc. Sometimes we do longer workshops on Spark because people are interested in this, in which case we get into all the functionality, but just to breeze through it in 10 seconds, that and Canva are basically template-driven design tools for creating graphics, whether they be motion graphics, web graphics, or print graphics. Paul says, you use Spark. If you can learn it, anybody can. Right, exactly. Okay, so that is that. Next, yes.
What do you mean by single-use website?
Oh, so most websites, right, are published to a web server, which are then made available to the public. And it can be the greater public through the World Wide Web, or it can be on an intranet site, which would be like eRaven, which is available to just us as an audience. But either way, it's open to a public. Whereas single-use websites are functional websites that people can only access them if they have a link to it. So let's say, for example, you're putting together a family reunion. You could build a single-use website on Spark using they use a scrolling parallax template. It's easy to build. It's all drag and drop. And then you can just literally send the link to your family members. And it is served on Adobe's web servers, but only the people with the link get access to it.
Okay, so you couldn't search to it or something.
Right, exactly. So if you want, if you have a need for a private website and you don't want to, right. You know, and that's one of the drawbacks to some of the other web builders like Squarespace or Wix or even Google sites, is that they're searchable. You can find them out in the world. And there are ways to lock them down and make them private, but that requires digging into the preferences to do that. Whereas in Spark, they just automatically are.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, now, independent of sort of these web-based graphics programs, even if you're using terrestrial software on your computer and you're just using old Microsoft Word and you want to sort of make something a little more visually interesting, sometimes we are limited by the number of fonts we have on our computer. Terrestrial software can only access fonts that are physically on your computer. So you might need some new and funky fonts. And so actually buying professional grade fonts from a font house, or as they say in Germany, a font house, are expensive. But I recommend for my students to go to DaFont, which has been around for a long time. It is a contributable font library. Believe it or not, there are lots of people out there for fun who are known as fontographers who actually design typefaces and then share them on places like DaFont here. Now, they do have their fair share of goofy looking fonts, like Dashing Unicorn and whatnot. But if you dig down into the categories and you're looking for just a really nice modern sans serif font, you can search by that. You can sort by size. Maybe I want a small looking font and I want to look at the newest ones, and I go ahead and hit submit, and it'll show me some of the newer ones. And then this is where you get into some more nuanced looking fonts, which can make a document or a presentation look a little more interesting. Now, I always encourage my students stay away from fonts with too much personality, like don't download balloon animals. But there are lots of really interesting fonts that are not Helvetica or Arial for the 357th time, just to add a little more personality to your work in a way that requires a little more thought and sort of in choosing the font. Modeco here, for example, is a great sans serif font, which can be used for titles, subtitles, et cetera, because how many times do we see the same damn fonts over and over again? Maybe I'm just the only one who notices that, but it drives me bananas when I see it over and over again. Okay.
Chris, may I say one thing, because I see Catherine's question about not having a SurveyMonkey account, the premium one.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to let you know that if you use Google Forms or Microsoft Forms, which we do have for free. I know we have another presentation on Office 365, but 50,000 responses you can do on that. And Google Forms, I heard you could do 1 million responses, and that's all free.
Really?
So just letting you know. I've never tried 1 million. I have no reason to, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I mean, those are definitely deeper in terms of functionality. The only reason I bring up SurveyMonkey, particularly into data, is that they do a nice job of analyzing your results, which you don't really get with those other tools. So if you're interested in the analyzation, SurveyMonkey is a good way to go. But if you're just trying to sort of get a lot of survey results, yeah, you're 100% right. Those are excellent. All right, so it is 5 o'clock, so I'm actually going to stop a little short of where I was going to stop. We were going to get into mapping tools, but we're only one category short of what was planned. So next Friday, we'll pick up with mapping tools and go from there. I realize this is a breakneck pace. It's designed that way. We're trying to make you feel a little dizzy here. But really, in your own time, at your own pace, and even now between now and Friday, go into the forum and start doing a little bit of investigating and see what interests you. And then we'll do more again on Friday. All right, Paul.
Thanks so much, Chris. I'm sure everybody's head is spinning at this point, and don't worry about it. You know, again, we'll have follow-up sessions on some of these individual tools, and Chris is going to give you a survey later on, I believe after the end of the next presentation, where you'll be asked to which of these tools you want us to spend more time on, and that will drive future agenda.
Right.
Thank
exactly.
you.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, we'll see you next Friday, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chris.
As always,
Thank you,
Chris.
Chris.
Thank you, everybody.
Isn't he amazing?
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel so inadequate whenever Chris does anything.
Yeah, same here.
Oh, man. Yep.
Bye, guys.
All right, good work, Chris. We'll see you later.
Thanks, everybody. See you later.